Yeah, you're not sightline. Okay, sorry. Good morning, Karen.
Hi. Now you're connected. Can you hear me, Karen?
Yes.
Okay, good. Very good. Well, first of all, thanks for your flexibility in helping this to happen in a different way. I appreciate it.
Easier for me not to have to clean up my house.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, got it. Okay, so maybe this will work out even better. So, very good.
Although my
All
house
right.
is usually pretty clean, I should note.
Yeah, it's probably relative. Relatively, I would think it's very clean. So that wouldn't have been a problem. I can't pet your dog now. That would have been a nice thing. I'm
Little
such a
Lizzie,
fan.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, shall we go through the agenda as it was laid out? I don't have all the documents with me, but I've got this pretty well connected and I have them on my computer. So, shall we start
Yeah,
with
I think
the
this is your meeting and you should, I know you're not in the ideal circumstances, but you should run it as you see fit. I,
okay, thanks, Karen.
I've
Very good.
been through all the materials and I just want to hear what you are interested in finding out from me.
Okay, very good. So let's start with let's work first on the prayer book in Dan's memory, and let's start with did you got into and you watched the think tank? Did you
Yes.
any particular impressions, things that you want to note as we move forward?
Well, what I did is I made some notes of, I did watch the whole thing. Um, the first, I think in the early part of it, there was a um, question that went out along the lines of um, what are we trying to do here? What's the
Mm-hmm.
purpose of this? And
Right.
people have different responses to it. And I was asking myself, well, what is the purpose?
Okay. Good.
Because the purpose isn't to make people orthodox. The purpose isn't to ensure the coming of the Messiah
Right.
earlier than later. Um, the purpose, I think, was to create Jews and to create Jewish families. Very simple, broad purpose
Right.
to create, to bring Judaism into the house. It's a very uh, low bar, but it's also um, it's the minimum we can do, and it is that's I think the way I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Create easy rituals for the simple child who does not know. If you think about the Passover saying, or the
Nice.
uninitiated, it's not the bencher that has 40 pages of pre and post meal blessings
Right.
that people don't know the tunes to, and people don't know the Hebrew, and it just becomes like, well, this is I'll never be able to do this, so forget it. It's not meant to be exhaustive. It's not meant to be some kind of a tractate on Reconstructionism, and it could, um, in its introduction, make that very clear. It
Mm-hmm.
should have. They talked about leadership, and I think that again, in part, the reason why I wanted to create a book like this is because there may not be leaderships in these
Mm-hmm.
homes. That we know that Reconstructionists now are hugely intermarried, and frequently it is the non Jewish spouse who wants to do a Jewish ritual and respect the Jewish spouse's religion. And it's the Jewish spouse who, um, kind of says, oh, I don't want to do it. But that may come
Mm-hmm.
from lack of knowledge. Um, so uh, it puts leadership in the hands of anyone who is literate, who can pick up the book and read it. I think another thing discussed at the meeting was repetitive rituals. The book would allow people to have repetitive rituals that are easy and short, which were all concepts brought up at the think tank. Well,
Yep.
index, cross index, another idea. I think the idea of putting music in there is probably too much, especially now that there are so many alternative tunes, and it's so
Right.
easy for people to go to the internet and go to YouTube and get some tunes if they wanted to. I think it should be transliterated, because that again is the gateway into deciding maybe I should learn Hebrew, or to at least feel like you're doing something your grandparents did. I like the personalization option, but I'm not sure it works in something this size. It would totally work if it was a little bit bigger than this and it was maybe a loose leaf format. So I'm not rejecting it, because I was intrigued by that, the idea that
Yeah. Your
kid
personal
would draw a
Bible, your personal
picture.
story.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And or even a kid would, you would write down what you're grateful for and repeat that every week, I thought life cycle events should be included, but little ones, like, there is a blessing when you buy a new house or move into a new apartment, the blessing around putting up a mezuzah, things like that, but not bar mitzvah, not
Right.
not Yom Kippur,
Right. Right.
but yes, maybe yahrzeit blessings. So that's kind of what I came up with, kind of, I wrote it all down. I could email it to you, but I did have a question though, and I know we have
Sure.
other things to discuss here, including
No, this is the biggest single chunk of time because it's, I think, in some ways the most important item. Others
Right.
will go pretty quickly. So anyway,
So
yeah, tell me what you're thinking.
What I did want is for it to be Reconstructionist. In
Right.
other words, and when I say Reconstructionist, I'm thinking of, these publications that we grew up with, these Reconstructionist publications that have evolved since the time of Kaplan, but are pretty much what we use in these services and in these prayers. And it occurred to me that we probably can't use this stuff because it's under copyright.
Correct. Unless we are doing it in partnership with Ritual Well, which is part of Reconstructing Judaism, but they are under copyright. So the sponsoring organization would initially be the Kaplan Center. And then if we got other sponsors for whatever reasons, because of their creative input or they're being able to, for instance, Ritual Well, that was Gila in the recording, is very valuable in putting this out to the Jewish world. Whatever it ends up looking like, if it's on the bookshelf of Ritual Well, it has a 500% better chance of getting into people's hands and into their homes than if we were trying to market this just through the Kaplan Center. So,
Okay, so
yeah.
which one of the women was Gila?
Gila was the one who co-facilitated with me.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Ritual Well is, what is that organization? Is it a?
So, yeah, it's the Reconstructing Judaism Center for Creative Prayer and Creative Liturgy, and they house hundreds of thousands of, well, they collect creative prayers, they commission liturgy and liturgists, and they put out, well, so for instance, there was in the Ritual Well collection, as well as some very contemporary poetry that went through the COVID era, um, about COVID. There is a ceremony that Richard Hirsch did a number of years ago about closing up a house or an apartment when a spouse has died, and you're or not necessarily that's one of the provoking circumstances, but when you're leaving a place that's been dear to you for many, many years, there are memories, and there should be a ritual way of expressing that. So that gives you a quick window. So they're tied to life cycle, all sorts of life cycle events and holiday, and it's very, very well respected in the Jewish world. They also have classes that allow people to access the resources and write their. If you go to ritualwell.org at your leisure, you would see. So they may or may not be interested in being a co-sponsor. They co-sponsor the think tank, depending on what the proposal looks like and what we go with. So we're still looking for creative proposals. That's where we've come to the RFP.
Right, because I never really thought of this as a project where we were going to be writing new prayers. I thought of it as a project where we would be collecting. It would be more of a new collection, because writing new prayers, I think, is a much bigger deal than
Right.
Yeah.
It
It would
is.
mostly, and therefore the idea of co-venturing with Ritual Well probably makes sense here if they
Yeah.
would have an interest, which is a very different thing from saying the Kaplan Center should merge with Reconstructing Judaism, which
Yeah.
is
No, it would be
right.
a
It's a much smaller, more limited thing,
right.
which gives us access to their
Mhm.
copyrighted material and makes this project more almost like kind of an update of this, or a more than an update, kind of a jumping off point. But we're not redoing everything that's in here,
No. And yeah, I do think it can be a collection. I'll appeal to your love of music to make a point, even if you're just collecting older creative prayers or traditional prayers. It takes a really fine eye. There's a difference between my grandchild plugging away on the piano, playing some tune, and I went to my first indoor concert in 3 years, and Rachmaninoff's third piano concerto. Right, there's an element of artistry. So it's
I mean,
it requires.
maybe the way we if we decide to go this route, it's very clear that the four women involved in that think tank were extremely focused on two groups of people that tend to have issues with liturgy. The elderly, and by that I mean people who are probably, really old, like in dementia situations, or near dementia situations, and children, 4-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds. I add a third group, which is the people in that middle category who are capable, but who don't have background, who don't have
Right.
Jewish knowledge. So I think that in my point of view, I'm trying, what we would be pitching to Ritual Well would be, maybe we do the loose leaf. Maybe we, in order not to compete with this book, maybe it is a loose leaf. It looks more in size, like maybe 4 inches by, no, maybe 5 inches by 8 inches or something like that. And does have the pages for children to do drawings.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pitched as, you know, this wouldn't be the title, but Easy Jewish Rituals
Yeah.
for the uninitiated or something like that.
Right.
And that's its particular space. Because I know Dan was very exercised by the increasing intermarriage, and by the fact that Jewish rituals seem to be disappearing from outside of, traditional conservative and Orthodox homes.
Right. Yeah, I think the people who were gathered into that think tank were sympathetic with that notion that you want to lower the barriers, you want to make it easy for people to enter ritual, and how they do that as a whole family is a challenge. You heard them thinking that through. I think
I was not thrilled by the concept of like combing through everything and changing all the genders and things like that. I think, but I will say that I think a lot of that is already done in
yeah,
in
right.
the venture for the Reconstructionist movement.
Right. So one question is whether these are assorted blessings. I think my own thinking, having heard this, is that there's a major focus on Shabbat and the time that people gather together as a family Shabbat, which is often Friday night. And then there's a significant supplementary emphasis on holidays and life cycle. But the notion was that it would be, that I heard from the group, is that it would be more than Hamotzi and Birkat Hamazon. It would give the texture of a Shabbat experience for the home. So there'd be a set of beautiful readings. I think you're right that the musical element is hard to integrate, but the visual is really critical. So some beautiful illustrations, some things to share, and that would be its major focus. When I began to think about the other end of the price and the cost of putting together, it re-emphasized for me less is more, but I think even more importantly, less is more for the people who are there. If you can give them a 10-15 minute Shabbat experience, well guided, you have a good chance of their doing it. If you do a whole, even Kabbalat Shabbat, the Friday night service welcoming the Sabbath, even that is a half hour and you're sunk before you began. This has to be streamlined and
right.
accessible.
And it's not meant to replicate synagogue experiences. It's not meant to say, hey, now let's have a Saturday morning service.
No.
So
right. Yeah, I think that's true. So we wouldn't touch Shabbat morning actually, because we want people to end up there. But
correct.
Friday night they are around their table, so it wouldn't replace, but it might supplement what they otherwise would do at synagogue, knowing that 95% of the folks who might use this aren't going to go to Kabbalat Shabbat Friday night services. So somehow having it as a supplement, say, hey, I want to be at JRC or my favorite congregation um, later that evening because I love the singing of the whole congregation, or I love the storytelling. We want to enrich that, not replace that. I think that's pretty clear to us.
Right. I mean,
Uh,
if we ventured, I'm thinking of like a joint venture. If we ventured with Ritual Well, obviously, um, we would give up a big chunk of royalties. I think we'd have to do, at least 50-50. But we're
yeah,
not doing this. We're not doing this necessarily to make money. We're doing it to, we certainly want to cover our expenses, but we're doing it, we're seeking bigger game. In other words, we're seeking to make Judaism accessible, but also with the Reconstructionist. I keep going back to it being Reconstructionist, which is why I realized we would have to have some kind of buy-in from the Reconstructionist movement if we wanted to just, because it becomes a much easier thing if we basically are able to take things out of this book without rewriting them.
yeah. I'm a little pessimistic. I'm not pessimistic about a partnership with Ritual Well. I think taking out of that book would be hard for a number of reasons, but I think what we want to do is go through. Those were 12 very talented people. Maybe one or more of them is interested in being the one who does. Bye, Deb. Deb, my wife says hi to you. Um, Wants to be the one who takes the project on. Um, they will also share it with with others, and by the time we choose which proposal we're getting that feels most attractive, then we can go back to Ritual Well and see if they want to be partners. It's important, I think it would be important from Dan's perspective to make sure that it's a Kaplanian as well as a Reconstructing Judaism kind of imprint. We've done lots of work this year around liturgy, and so it has to stand in that tradition. But it clearly does, just like the Haggadah stood in that tradition as well. But to the extent that it also is channeled through the Kaplan Center, and I'm coordinating that process, there needs to be some imprint of Kaplanian approach. And the differences sometimes between the Kaplanian and Reconstructing Judaism are very subtle and small, but institutionally it has to bear that mark on it. I don't think that's hard. I just think that's something we have to keep in mind.
Let me ask you something very bluntly.
Uh-huh.
Do you think this is a waste of time? Do you think it's like, why are we bothering with it? This is unnecessary. This is going to be difficult and not have a big impact.
No, I don't think that. I do think, well, I don't think it's not going to have a big impact. I don't think it's a waste of time, but I think it's very, very difficult because the nature of creating this kind of liturgy, which is one of the reasons I sent you just as a double check. So I've always heard, Caryn, two sources of motivation for this project, coming from you. One was to produce something where Dan's name wasn't sidelined because of previous agreements with JPS, which just would clearly be in Dan's memory. That was, I think, one motivation. And the other motivation that I heard was and people were very touched by your portrait of you and Dan shaping the family and the role that prayer played in your life. You probably heard them comment on it. The other is that this is a different side of Dan. There's Dan the scholar, and he was that, and the convener of scholars, and there's Dan the person active in Jewish life and trying to enrich it. And I always heard this as a way of connecting to that second side of Dan. However, if the motivation was more, they're both there, more weighted towards, is there something that that the Kaplan Center could help produce that would have dedicated to Dan's memory, big, bold, clear, not buried in the preface, then that's why I sent you that work that Herb Levine's working on it's not blessings without God, but it's blessings with God in a transnatural context. It's an important piece of liturgy, and Herb approached me and I said I would explore it with you as an alternative, and to be honest, it's much less work for me, because what it would mean is taking some specified, it'd be a little bit like the JPS deal, except it would be solely in Dan's memory. And I think he's looking to publish it through Ben Yehuda Press, but it would be bells and whistles about Dan work at the Kaplan Center to empower people to explore alternative liturgy. So I saw that as the more, I was very attached to Dan. So I recognized his complexity. So I thought that was in Dan the scholar convener mode, whereas this was touching on Dan the enricher of Jewish family life, his own and others, and it's not messier, it's just harder to get at because of all the props.
Let me ask you some questions about this.
Uh-huh.
Who is Herbert Levine?
I'm sorry?
Who is he?
Herbert Levine. He's a scholar of Jewish poetry, liturgy. He's an extraordinary Hebraist. He's written books about the Psalms. He's married to Ellen Frankel, who was a few decades ago the chief executive officer of Jewish Publication Society, who just published a series of books about Ethiopian Jews, including one that I just enjoyed called the Hyena Murders. If you like murder mysteries, it's a really good one. Anyway, he's done a lot of this work. He was this. I'll just be honest, because I consider you a friend, and I should be nothing but honest with you. He went through a period where he was the executive vice president of then Furch, and I think this was before Dan got involved. No, of RRC. He was in charge of significant amount of work, and there were some issues of sexual propriety around him, which he owned and moved on. So that's a shadow that I think most people have forgotten, but I needed to mention it.
This is kind of ringing a bell. What were the issues? Was it?
Yeah, I think it never was more than inappropriate touching. That's pretty bad. But it was in regard to students or staff or something. I think he left as a precautionary measure, but I don't know that whole story. I was around, but and Herb was Herb and Ellen were friends.
What was Dan's, if you know, what was Dan's opinion and or interactions with Herb Levine?
I think they were minimal. I I think he stayed in touch with her because he recognized him as a scholar and invited him to speak at Kaplan Center webinars a couple times. Um, and so I don't think
Did he speak at Kaplan Center webinars?
I think he did. He was part of a panel at one time,
See, I
but
have this
a number of
recollection.
years ago.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sorry.
have this recollection of a situation where, no, this is different. Um, Dan had some situation recently, probably within a year, probably in the 2020, 2019, 2020, where there was some Zoom or computer oriented event like a webinar, and some man was in the audience.
Yeah, no, that wasn't
A-
her. I mean, I remember that, but
And
no,
there was a
wasn't
big brouhaha
her.
about
Right,
it.
right.
Dan
Uh,
and I both think that these issues with hounding men to death for things like, things that today would be considered like, you're a pariah. We were both not in favor of that. People make mistakes.
right, right.
Uh,
I agree.
it's completely contrary to any sense of kindness to, you know, throw people out as opposed to saying, okay, let's not do this anymore, and keeping them, allowing them to redeem themselves.
Yeah,
So the fact that he had these issues doesn't bother me, but I don't want it to like make this thing be dead on arrival because they were so horrible that,
yeah.
that
I could check that out, but I'm pretty sure that wouldn't be the case. But there would be an echo or two somewhere. I think it's a um, it's a very important strategic contribution. Look, one of our taglines of the Kaplan Center and our new vision statement is that we experiment with we embrace Jewish ritual of old and we experiment with new Jewish rituals. And this does this thing. So as a friend, I would say that I'm a person of my word, that I will see the family prayer book blessings through to the end. It will take a lot of my time. I think I said in the very beginning, it's a lot more than cutting and pasting. I think you recognize that, and the pathway is the right one for request for proposals and partnership with. Ritual Well could be a very good part of this, which is a good thing for the Kaplan Center. But this 50% executive director that the Kaplan Center, hired beginning July 1st, puts in more like 80 to 90% of his time into this. That's the nature of the work. I'm not complaining, but this would, it might be it would be simpler to package this generosity in a simpler way where we aren't as involved with the creation of the volume or don't have to vet a half dozen different proposals. But that said, I put time into this. I'm willing to see through the first path because I said I would, and you gave us some money to begin that process. So I just wanted to open up that there's probably an equally good way to put Dan's name on something he cared about, but it may not be the thing that you care about now in relationship to
Well,
Dan's
tell me
legacy.
more about the Siddur. What is, I printed it out. I looked at it. There was a lot that I liked, but I haven't been through it all. What is the purpose of it?
It's to give people a chance to pray um, without the burdens of supernaturalism. It's
Uh-huh.
give people a chance to locate God within themselves, their communities, their world, and using creative language, and that's what his great gift, in order to do that. So I think, in a nutshell, that's what it's about.
But it tracks the concept of a Jewish service.
It is designed to be a Jewish service, and I haven't looked at it in a while. Several Jewish services. Caryn, also, I'm glad to let you think about this a little bit, sort of
Why
having.
don't we do this? First of all, I had forgotten that I gave money to the concept. Is there any money left, or have we spent it all in the?
We've spent $2,000 of, remember so this was sort of the seed grant, and you gave 2,500 and Jack Wolofsky gave 2,500. We have 3,000 left of that money. And in a previous conversation, if you look at the request for proposals, I had to make my best educated guess of what we would pay someone to put together the kind of volume we wanted, and that's $10,000 just for the beginning, because that's on the low side, but I didn't want to commit more money than I thought we necessarily had, and that's apart from collaboration and artists, putting it, getting it print ready, finding the distributor. It helps if it's Ritual Well that way. Minimally, by the way, if we do this, and even if we go independently, you can put it on Ritual Well's bookshelf, which is visited by, I don't know, tens of thousands of people, and they have a standard arrangement. If we were ultimately the publisher, we the Kaplan Center, and we weren't in full partnership, we would still get 60% of the royalties and they would get 40. So that's an arrangement they have. So
the person who gave the other 2,500, what are his expectations?
Well, okay. If we wanted to please Jack, we would be doing Herb Levine's project. I don't know if he has any echoes. I don't think he has echoes of Herb, but putting that aside, Herb is doing the exact thing that Jack is so attached to, Kaplan and Kaplan Center.
If we pivoted and put the money towards Siddur and a new key, Jack would be okay with his 2,500 going.
Yeah, well, I would check it out with him, but I am very certain he would be. It's not that he doesn't care about families and their ritual expression, but he cares most about being on the cutting radical edge of Kaplanian experimentation. So I would double check with him. He's, Jack, I think, is 92 and having a few health issues, but he's still very alert. He may even, no, I don't want to promise this, and we also have a different pledge for Jack that he's still making to the Kaplan Center, but he might even be willing to invest some more money in it. I think he was doing the family Siddur, the blessings book, as because he wanted to partner with you, because he wanted to help the Kaplan Center. This touches his passion, so he might want to do more. I think you should think about it. I mean, this will end up.
I would like you to. What I'd like to do is spend more time looking at the Siddur, and have you investigate further the extent to which what the allegations were against Levine and what they date to, and whether they're completely put to bed. Because
Mhm.
what I think we have today in this country is we have handed weapons
Right.
of destruction to the least responsible people you can have. I mean, I don't know if you just read that article about what happened at Hamline College recently. It
That's
was
in my backyard.
yeah.
Hamlin
So
is right in Minneapolis. Yeah.
right. So you know that um completely you know the story that um an art teacher in a class that had some focus on Islamic art, um, put in the syllabus, warned the class, put it on the internet, and then warned the class the day of the class, when the class convened, and gave people time to leave, that they were going to be showing a 14th century manuscript which had an image of Muhammad in it. And one of the attendees in that class basically um, either was such a bad student, didn't see any of the warnings and got to class late, I don't know, but then got hysterical. And this art teacher was fired.
Wow.
The only, it was like, wow, you can't show an image of Muhammad, which, by the way, is not, in fact, accepted by all Muslims. It
Right.
is
Right.
okay, including the Muslims who, many Muslims over the history of time, including this 14th century painting, who actually painted pictures of Muhammad. But the school took the position that it was Islamophobia and fired the teacher. Look it up afterwards. If you put in Hamline and Islam, it'll pop up.
Yeah.
I don't
So
want things, so what we've done is we've handed the weapon of mass destruction to the least scrupulous people. And I don't want this project to go down because some unscrupulous person, somebody that Levine touched 40 years ago, decides she doesn't have enough excitement in her life and wants to destroy this project.
right. Of course, and I don't want that either. Um, I would suggest maybe two things, Caryn. One is I will have conversations with people who can give me, Lee Nader without an absolute promise, but their best judgment about whether this is asleep and whether we would hear ripples. And I'll convey that to you. I think it also would be the positive side of this is that you would have a sense that this is a great adventure in liturgy. And maybe I would make the suggestion that maybe you, Eric, and I could find an hour together sometime to have looked more carefully at the prayer book, Sidor in a new key, and talk about it so that we would all understand sort of the foundations. I mean, Eric's is a scholar of liturgy. Anyway, that would be a suggestion I'd have on the positive side of, is this good enough to have Dan and the Kaplan Center and the Jacob Cederbaum?
Yeah, let's do an hour with Eric, and that'll give me a target date to read through it. I started reading through it and I liked a lot of what I saw.
Right.
And it certainly is it's interesting because Dan really did like a lot of the traditional liturgy, but he
Yeah,
was
I
also
know.
very, very open to new
Mhm.
things. And there is a sense of a lot of people who are not, who were not brought up in the Jewish tradition of like, oh, this is all just a bunch of gobbledygook. Whereas these are things that actually, these are things you actually would read,
Right.
you know.
And we would know the market for this much better than for the family prayer book, which we'd be creating the market. We'd be still coming up against the people who like praying, especially things like Birkat Hamazon and Shabbat blessings, already do it. They don't want to be bothered with something quote unquote newfangled. And the people who don't do it aren't going to do it, even if you create the most accessible. I think that's a high bar hurdle we can take on as a challenge. But I think, if you were, we never put a final price, but if you were equally amenable to investing whatever that is, $15,000, I made that up sort of, although we had some past discussion, in the Siddur and the new key, as in the family ritual, I think we ought to consider it. And it sounds to me like before I do some exploring of Herb Levine's shadow or non-shadow, we ought to have that hour together, and it ought to be something that do you want us to invite Jack to that as well? I mean, I don't want it to be a big group, but if
No, especially since he's 92. I'd rather
okay,
I'd
I
rather
should be as sharp as he is. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, no,
Yeah, he's very sharp.
I'd rather it just be the three of us,
Okay.
and the question, and then we can take the next step about asking it. Nothing is ever asleep now. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the problem. The problem
Yeah.
is people get nailed for things that happened 50 years ago.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
And the other thing is, if it were put out by, say, Ben Yehuda Press, they, supported by the Kaplan Center and Jacob Cedarbaum family, would be less, the press itself would take some of the heat. But let's just see, A, if there is heat, and that's B, if it's worth investing in. So what I'm going to do is put a hold on, we're in no rush on the RFPs. It's come along nicely until we can make a more fundamental.
The main issue is the Siddur a quality piece of work?
Yeah, I have a lot of confidence in that, but I don't want you to take it. And I'm pretty decent liturgical innovator, but not of the stature or scholarship of Eric. So I would welcome the opportunity to go deeper. And yes, if as I think we would hear from Eric, is that this is something that, and as well as I knew Dan, Eric knew him even better. This is something that would be an honor to Dan's legacy and to the Kaplan Center, and meets the test of being really quality innovation. So I will call Eric and be back in touch around that particular issue. Okay, good. Let's move on. I don't know if you had a chance to look at the website, but if you did, I was curious about.
Oh, that's the one thing I forgot to do. Hold on, let me go on it now.
Okay, take a minute. Yeah, take a 3-minute break and do some perusing, because we've put a lot of effort and resource into it. By the way, we still have too many, and this is not political correctness. We're working hard to get Jews of color and younger Jews represented visually on the website. That's a challenge for us.
Yeah, but you know what? Don't. I mean, it's one thing to get younger people, but I mean, how many Jews of color are there?
A lot. Well,
yeah. What are we talking about? 0.5%?
No. Actually, if you define Jews of color as being of Latino or Hispanic origin, like it's now 7%. So that's changed, but that doesn't mean 7% of the pictures have to be of them. I'm just saying that because we've gotten a lot of praise for the new look of the website and some criticism that it's still, like, if you look at the bottom, you would have, who are the four people there? Dan Cedarbaum, Jeff Schein, Eric Kaplan, Mel Skull. Those are four white dudes. It's true, and that's perception. Anyway, we want to balance perception but still put quality in the lead. So you, if you're looking, you'll also see the innovation garden that came out of the Cedarbaum Prize, that now we've invested not just the 2 winners, but the 12 projects that we gave small grants to, and have created an innovation garden and are about to invite educators across the country to come take a tour with us of Kaplanian values and innovation. So,
wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, I'm glad it pleases your eye. We've had the very substantial talents of Sheridan, our administrator, and even more Rabbi Margie Jacobs, who is actually leading the next webinar we're doing on Kaplan and the Jewish arts, but she's our web consultant. So she helps us make it all real, and has reorganized some of it and has a better
The
color
things in the
scheme.
innovation garden, are those all things that we supported, or are they just
They are
various?
things.
Go ahead.
We had, much to our surprise and delight, we had 39 applications for the Cedarbaum Prize, and we knew we were only giving 2 of them, but we were so impressed and thankfully successful enough in our initial fundraising that we turned back to 10 other people and made them grant recipients. I mean, it's $250 for each of them. So they all came through the process that of the Cedarbaum Prize. So I was hoping it would exceed our expectations, and it certainly has. So you can click on any of
So
those.
Was basically the innovation garden something that allowed these people to get their work product that they were otherwise doing on your website?
Yeah, they
Okay.
made presentations at our November 9th innovation conference, and then they're put on the website. And if you don't need to do it now, but you could click on any of them and they have their own page with resources.
I've been doing that. So
yeah.
So we're also helping them
Yeah.
get PR.
Yeah. And what we're also doing is actualizing part of Dan's vision that though our home in some ways in Reconstructionism, that the Kaplanian world is bigger than the Reconstructionist world. And that's why of the 12 profiled plants growing in the garden, I think 6 of them come from groups that have a Kaplanian connection in terms of thought, but not a formal reconstructing Judaism. And that's exactly the sweet spot we wanted to embrace, that Dan, guided us towards in the early years, that it's non-denominational. Kaplan's message is bigger than the Reconstructionist movement. So I really am pleased the way that developed.
Oh, this is very nice. It always was a pretty good website, but I think this is really, really nice.
Yeah, well, we built on a foundation. So yeah, so that we've done that now. Now let's go on to less creative but very important things. I wanted to update you on 501c status. I don't know if you tried to make a sample donation.
Hold on a sec.
Yeah.
because I think we've done agenda items 1 and 2,
Yeah.
and your
I
third
moved it
agenda-
around when I reorganized this. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right.
Is that
Go ahead.
okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine. Okay.
Okay. So, but yes, it could be confusing. So, I have a meeting in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, 2-hour drive from Minneapolis, because um, it seems the best advice I've gotten is that you've got to get someone from the IRS on your side to fast track this. The easiest thing for them is to put it in the queue that, as far as we know, is still 9 months long. Turns out, after speaking to several new lawyers and CPAs, that we were indeed misclassified, but not in the way I thought. I mean, I take responsibility for not having mastered quickly the intricacies of the IRS. You could be one of 3 things with the IRS. You could be private operative, that allows people to make donations to you. You can be private non-operative. I'm talking about foundations now, because everyone can make to the website or write a check. But what we really are, we're a public charity. Now that threw me off and probably partly accounted for my not taking the easiest path here. Because when I hear charity, my feeble mind thinks of soup kitchens, shelters, those kinds of things. And I thought we weren't that. But the IRS looks at public charities also as educational institutions. So had we, when we filled out our 1023 EZ form, which it turns out was not the best form to fill in, this is a long story. If we had checked that we were a public charity, the IRS, we wouldn't be having some of these issues of checks being turned back from foundations. The IRS probably would have just approved that, but they don't like to make changes in status. The good news, however, is that despite poor information that was passed on to me by the IRS itself, we've determined that the IRS has a special status they assign to organizations in their first year of operation. And technically, the Mordecai Kaplan Center for Jewish Peoplehood without the M is was founded in June when we closed the old center, opened the new one. If you can show them that the big thing is their means test. If you can show them that at least 30% of your support comes from the public, hence public charity, then that's the status that you deserve. And they may charge us $550 for it. But what we hope is that the person I'm meeting with, who's a kind of a new foot soldier to the IRS, is going to be on the call with a veteran senior IRS official from Chicago. And I've gotten really, I think, clear advice about what to present to them to make the case that we were misclassified. I played a role in that. So did Aaron, who guided us through the process, but we were misclassified. And during the first year of your operation, there's some flexibility. If you go beyond that, you have, in a certain way, you have to wait 5 years so you can show 5 years of tax forms submitted. So I think we have a good shot at getting this fast tracked. That's my hope. We have $12,000 in donations that are still pending because they couldn't make it through their.
And that's primarily because that 12,000, is that all donor advised funds?
Yeah,
that doesn't
yeah.
recognize.
That's the only kind we have trouble with. The biggest of those is the Eisenstadt Messenger that also comes for Fidelity. And then there are several smaller ones. A couple of people said it didn't matter to me, so I'd rather do it through my DAF, but I don't want to cause more work for you. So I'll just write a personal check and settle it out. But
So we
in the
are a
future,
501c3.
we are. We are. So people can
But some
take us as
DAFs don't recognize it because
the IRS classified us, and this is also the IRS, when they wrote to us, the letter said, congratulations, you're a 501c3, you can begin receiving funds from, and they mentioned donor. And then at the bottom it says, we have classified you as a private foundation based on your information. What they didn't say, and they really should have, is a private foundation non-participating um, status. That's what makes it harder for the donor advised fund to. If we were a private foundation operating, the private foundation says that's maximally beneficial for the person, for the person whose fund we manage, and we do that. But when they see non-operative, they think, and this is true, that many private foundations are funnel donations to others. They're like a mega center, and they don't want that. So that's why the means test is so
what really bothers me is why a DAF would get into the business of determining which 501c3s you can give to and which you can't.
Yeah, well, so it would still be helpful if you.
You want me to
I'll
make a contribution and see what happens?
Yeah, we
Hold
have
on,
a
let me
mixed
do it right.
record.
Hold it, let me do it right now.
Okay,
Fidelity.
so I should bring up our EIN number, right? Unless you have
No,
You
wait
have
a
it.
minute.
I
I've
did.
never done it on, right. I've never done it on, I've always, okay. Yes.
Through Ezra
So,
Habonim. Okay,
okay,
let me
hold on
get
a
it.
second.
Okay.
So here I am, I'm in the account. I have to log in, just a second.
I think, Karen, it might take a phone call to tell them, we are a significant client of yours, and please just put this through. I don't care if it's participating or non-participating. That doesn't matter to me. Because it's been mixed. I would say we've had 3 donations gone through using Ezra Habonim's EIN, but asking that the check be made out to the Mordecai Kaplan Center for Jewish Peoplehood. And we've had 4 donations be rejected. And then they explained to us the reason for that is the IRS has you classified as private, non-operating. So it may be the person and how they woke up on a given day,
All right, so I'm into the account. I'm putting
Okay.
in make a grant, add grants to your list. Okay, so hold on a second. Enter grant details, then add the grant to your list. How do I do that?
Yeah.
Well, let me see, find a charity, maybe. Okay, so what's the name that I should be looking for?
You should be looking for the Mordecai Kaplan Center for Jewish People, Jewish Peoplehood, and our EIN number.
Hold on a sec. Okay, it's picking up as Ezra Habanim Niles Township
Right.
Jewish Congregation.
That was the
Mordecai
old
Kaplan Center. That's the old one.
That's the Mordecai M. Kaplan Center.
Yeah. Okay.
The new one would be the Mordecai Kaplan Center for Jewish Peoplehood. And
hold on, I have to take this call. It might be my mother's
sure,
provider.
Absolutely, no problem.
Hello? Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Was everything okay?
Okay, so let's reschedule. Sorry, I'm just going to reschedule something. All right, so when
Okay,
do you want to
go
reschedule
ahead.
to?
I'm going to go get another document as we do that.
Sorry, I'm just scheduling an MRI. Just one.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
go ahead. Let's take a 3-minute break.
Okay, I'll be back in 3.
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead and tell me what you have available. No, I've got too much going on Thursday. Yeah, next week is fine. Monday's very, hold on. Monday afternoon, Wednesday morning. Yeah, what time? Yeah, okay, MRI well met. 5 o'clock, Monday the 16th. Yeah, you don't have to call me if it's approved. I just assume I have to come, only if it's denied, okay? All right, thank you. Okay, bye-bye. Sorry.
That's
All right,
okay.
so I'm,
Um,
okay, so Mordecai M. Kaplan for Jewish, I'm gonna take out the M, right?
right. And I'm going to give you,
Let's see.
I'm going to give you our new EIN. If
Yeah,
that
let
will
me
help
search
get
by
you.
EIN. Yeah,
Okay,
go ahead.
it's 88
Uh-huh.
dash 189 0481. 88
88
18.
hyphen 1890481.
Hi, how was your?
Cold wasn't open.
Yeah, 88 18900481.
All right, nothing's coming up.
Let me make sure I gave it to you correctly. 88 dash 189 0481.
Can't find what you're looking for. Okay, read it to me again.
88 dash, or actually it's a hyphen. That might
Hyphen,
make
right?
it different. Yeah. 88 hyphen 189 0481.
All right, so now if you would like to recommend a grant to a charity that is not in our catalog, so that's what I'm doing now.
Okay.
A charity with TIN tax ID number 8818900481 does not exist in our database. Make a grant recommendation that will cause grant processing times to take longer than usual as we conduct our due diligence. All right, so read me the exact name.
The Mordecai Kaplan Center for Jewish Peoplehood.
They're not allowing us to. All right, what's the address?
3601 Park Center Boulevard, apartment 307, Minneapolis, Minnesota, 55416.
Hold on a second. A charity with does not exist in our database. Making a grant recommendation will cause grant process.
It's probably not worth our time together right now, Karen, if it's not. I mean, I know other people have access, and I'm not sure. Is this your Fidelity?
Yeah,
Or your, yeah, so I don't know why other people have used Fidelity, but different Fidelities, and access the EIN only to be told that they can't do it because of our status. The other path that people have used is that still using the EIN of Ezra Habunim, which they've agreed to. We could do that, but asking that the check be made out to the Mordecai Center, Kaplan Center for Jewish Peoplehood, and then Jeanette forwards the check to me because they are private. They're a public charity or private operating. So that's how people. That was how Stephen will come to him before we end. Stephen Merkel made his donation through, and you've made donations through Ezra Habonim. We wanted to close that down because we no longer want Ezra Habonim to be the middle person.
okay,
And
so,
then,
yeah, okay, so I know all that, but what, I thought you wanted me to do a test case here.
yeah, we
And
did.
it's not allowing enter grant details, then add your grant to start, search your charities. No,
Well,
it
probably
doesn't look
because you,
like I can, it doesn't look,
Yeah.
You're not on their list.
right.
And when
I
I
don't know.
tried to add you to the list, it wouldn't allow me. It only gave me about 15 characters for your name. So your name is, I mean,
Okay.
it's just ridiculous. Your name is
Yeah.
too long. So wait,
Well,
give me the, do you want me to, I'll call them. So repeat all this information one more time. The
Okay.
EIN is,
Yeah. The EIN is 88 dash hyphen 1890481.
and then it's the Mordecai,
The Mordecai Kaplan Center for Jewish Peoplehood. I mean, if
okay.
you and then the address is 3601 Park Center Boulevard, apartment 307, Minneapolis, Minnesota 55416.
Park Center Boulevard, 3601 Parks. This is your home, Park Center
Yeah.
Boulevard, apartment 307, Minneapolis, Minnesota, 55416. And just give me a phone number. Is there a phone number associated with the center?
Yeah, it would be mine, which is 216-409-3813. I mean, do you want me to send you a copy of the, I think actually I put in our first email a copy of the EIN initial letter saying that we were given. So I will send that to you
So
when I
who's
get home
having this
tomorrow.
meeting with the IRS?
I am.
Is a
I'm-
lawyer going to be on? Go ahead.
No, I've talked to two lawyers, two CPAs about the strategy to use, and it's not with a lawyer on the phone. We have the last person I spoke to, who is an accountant, a lawyer and an accountant who does this work out of Seattle, said that if there's a decent chance that they will fast track this because it was an honest mistake and because you're in the first year, and change your status, in which case foundations should be able to make this contribution. If not, then either maybe the line's shrunken and only takes 4 months now to go through the process. I have
All
all
right,
the
so
official.
you don't want me to do anything right now?
Yeah, you know what? It's not a good use of your time. So wait until I've had that meeting. It's only a week from now, and
Okay.
I'll
What
update you.
happened- What happened as a result of this letter that Jane wrote to them?
Well, so uh, because Jane spoke to the person at Fidelity and she sent the letter, they sent it through. It came to us exactly the way we had uh, imagined until the IRS changed our status. It came using Ezra Habonim, but
Right.
asking that they make the check out to the Mordecai Kaplan Center for Jewish Peoplehood. So when Jane did it, it worked. When Jeff Eisenstadt tried to do it, they said, we can't make the check out to a name different than the EIN number. So, I don't know why that is, but it is. Anyway, that's where we are. I hope I have your permission when I have all the documents that show that we are a public supported charity. They require 30% of the income coming to they don't want to have stockholders. That's their fear. They don't want people holding this with stocks. They need to see, and we have, I think, 65% of our support, more than that, all of it essentially comes from donations, whether they're large donations like yours or high donations from other people. And so we meet the criteria that they care most about. It's just a question of whether they're going to say, having given this, we say there was a mistake made, an honest mistake, and for sure, and we will try to do this within the month. I would like to say it's true that there are past donors who are losing patience, because they've tried and they couldn't make the donation. And I would also say that our largest single donor, you, would like to be able to make their, the $20,000 donation for this year by the end of February.
You could say whatever you want. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Say that I'm losing patience. I need to make the donation. That I that I'm dismayed that we're having this much trouble when this organization has been around since 20, well, you can't say that, but
I can't say that, right?
Yeah, right.
Then they'll start looking for records we don't have. But
Right,
yeah,
right.
I will use your name if necessary, and I don't even
You
think
could
I have to
say
your name.
whatever is needed. Okay.
Okay, and then I'll get back to you.
Okay.
So next on my agenda is fundraising, and this is a success story. In the document I sent to you, I tried to break down what totals nearly $40,000 in donations in 2022. That exceeded when I created the budget that allowed us to move forward for 2 years. The board accepted the challenge of raising $25,000 over 2 years. We've 7 months in.
I need to run and get some reading glasses because these
Okay.
numbers are too small. I'll be.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Okay. So you asked for the names of contributors, and I had Sheridan prepare the names of about 50 contributors who were $250 or more. in 2022. If I add to them so that includes different sorts of donations. It includes the people who sponsored webinars, which yielded about $4,500. We talked about that. You gave me some good advice. That's been a very successful strategy. It includes a rabbinic group who we've given the name of Mefarshei Chazon Kaplan, pursuers of a 21st century Kaplanian vision. And then it includes general donations. It all adds up to $40,000. If you like, I could share my screen with that document, but I don't know, how much we need the specific, but I think you wanted to revisit, are people still donating to the Kaplan Center? And we've been trying to monitor that. And the answer is, though it takes enormous effort and reminders, we've exceeded our minimal goal in fairly spectacular ways, in that we're looking to raise $25,000 over 2 years. That would have given us our minimal contribution we needed to make when combined with the larger grants and the money that was still there. And we've raised 40,000 over 7 months. So hooray.
So that's for the 2022, 2023. What is the Kaplan Center's year? Is it a calendar year or a fiscal year?
No, we run a fiscal year from July 1st.
Okay, so this 40,000 is from July 2022 to June 2023.
Yeah, and I think we've gotten most of what will come in. There'll probably be a couple more thousand, but our target of 25,000 was through the end of June 2024. So in that sense, we are ahead of schedule. I think we're going through this winnowing process of, we're no longer getting significant donations, as one would expect, from people who had collegial, or it's not true for personal, but collegial relationships with Dan. That the matching grant and the activity of 2021 was, tap into those people. Now we're going more to stalwart Kaplan Center presenters.
Right. So let me ask you a question. So the 2022, 2023, that includes 20 from the 40 includes 20 from me.
No, it doesn't. It does not.
Because I'm looking at I'm looking at what you sent me, this document.
Right.
And when I add up the 2020, are these two columns different columns? Oh yeah, they are. Yeah. 2022, 2023 donation amount, 2022, 2023 webinar donation. Those are additive.
Yeah, and it's complicated. We are working to shift over to, right now we're working with documents, Google documents and sheets. We're looking to move over to and with MailChimp. So we've signed a contract to work with Neon One, which specializes in nonprofits, and it's a little more money than MailChimp, but they give other services in terms of organizing your financial contributions, keeping lists together of people who are differentiated, the rabbis from the past.
I'm just trying to figure out how to read this chart. Does the 40,000 you've raised include Eisenstadt's 10,000?
No, it does not.
It doesn't include Walensky.
It's put there and it doesn't include Walensky's, and it doesn't include your contributions.
And are those
we need it. Yeah.
Are those pledged contributions in the bottom left, the 10, the 40, and the 15,000? Are those for a 2-year period?
No. Well, so
Because mine
the
definitely was.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
40,000 spread over 2 years. Jeffrey and Sarah's 20,000 over 2 years. And then we did put this up there. Um, the Newman family,
Right.
your foundation pledged for 5 years, but the 10,000 was for this year. So I am meeting one of our donors is my cousin Evan Siegel, who's a entrepreneur of high quality and quite wealthy. He's donated not a lot, but $1,000 each year. But he has agreed to sit down with Jane and I, and we have a meeting set up to think about the long run. I would say that what I've been good at is energy, persistence, and opportunism. That, I've tried to constantly parlay that in ways that account in part, ultimately it's people's generosity, to why we've raised 40,000 rather than what one would have thought would be 10,000 at this point. But that's not the same as a long range strategy. And I think we still are very aware that of the 1,500 people in our mailing list, about 100 of them have donated at one point or another. Now, charity organizations tell me that's a high percentage, but I don't think it is. But some of the charity navigators. Anyway, the support for the Kaplan Center is, I think, deep and appreciated, and everyone gets thanked. I would say if Jane, she has many attributes, and she and Harvey have contributed 3, and they're contributing another 1,000 now. They've upped their own contributions for sure, but she's very attentive to. We now have Kaplan stationery and an envelope, and she writes personalized notes. So that's good. That is in place. I have to sometimes restrain her to say, well, Jane, you really don't need to do this for a high or double high donation. But, she has the time and she likes doing it, and building appreciation is an important part of our culture. So we're lucky there. I think if we can, Caryn, does that answer your immediate questions about sort of who some of our donors are and how we're doing with this? I can give you more fine grain analysis at some point, but I think you want the big picture.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have 1,500 people. If everyone gave $10,
Yeah,
it would be $15,000.
yeah. So maybe we need to launch. We've had campaigns for around the High Holy Days and around December 15th and the end of the tax year. And that raised about $4,000. And these customized webinars, rabbis groups. But that's why I'm talking to, this is a good idea. I will feed it to Evan Siegel and his crew. That's a kind of strategy or tactic that's an interesting one to consider. So we're trying to, measure ourselves and orchestrate campaigns and not be only opportunistic. So I'm still good for about another 25 minutes. Are you okay right now? Because I'll move forward. I think we may need as little as an hour in the afternoon because we're moving through this pretty well. So, but let me share my screen. And I wanted to, I'm beginning to engage the the board with discussions about the future beyond these 2 years. And I apologize that this is very, very rough, but it's so rough that I think there's really 4 scenarios. But I thought it was helpful, and I will refine this for our next board meeting, to talk beyond 24 IOs that we want to consider. And one I call maintenance. And this could be alone or with a partner. If we've had one discussion with Reconstructing Judaism. We are thinking about a discussion with the SAJ that Dan had such a finely developed relationship with. But if we had a partner, there might be, I don't know, $20,000 of savings that comes from, if our partner had an infrastructure, we wouldn't have to be doing all we need to be completely independent. But if we were, I would estimate that our budget, our costs per year would be $100,000. And that would enable us to do the full set of 5 to 7 webinars, the constantly evolving website, undertake, we complete with this year, by the end of next year, all the obligations that Dan took on to the Kaplan Center. So beyond that time, we might ourselves do one publication each year. We might continue to cultivate membership groups or do a campaign to get everyone to be a member. It's interesting, when we talk to people, we're not even charity say, who are your members? Well, right now we're just beginning to create memberships, and we're looking to create some institutional memberships where a congregation can be a supporter. But we don't have that. Dan chose, probably rightly, to keep a very low bar. Just give me your name and email, and we'll make you part of our MailChimp. But that being part of a mailing list is not the same as membership, and that affects us. But it would enable us, this budget, to keep a part-time director, our web consultant,
What is
administrator.
your budget for this fiscal year? What is your?
It is, I have it in several documents. It is about $110,000 for this year.
And you've got the money.
We do.
Yeah,
And
okay.
we have the money to move into next year as well, with some,
So this you're talking about 2024, 2025?
Yeah, right. I am. So this gives us time to plan, which we need in the most important way. A second vision of the Kaplan Center is streamlining and remaining independent, not looking for a partner, which is save us money, but also give us more influence. But remaining independent and streamlining, which would mean website would be our primary vehicle. We do maybe 2 webinars a year. They're very labor intensive. And maybe we've reduced to one single staff person, maybe 0.25 FTE, with some money for,
What does FTE mean?
Full-time.
Okay.
Yeah. So that would be, what we need to continue on to the future. It's an estimate. That would be a scenario that we would choose if we thought that the benefit of maintaining our present status wasn't sufficient or possible. I can't guarantee that the successes of this fundraising will continue. And of course, the third scenario is to find a super partner, super donor, a foundation, and that would enable us to maintain everything in our first scenario, but we might return to doing some of the conferences Dan so enjoyed doing and were such an earmark of the early years of the center. It would mean expanding to a full-time, fully paid executive director, uh, and probably a part-time fundraiser. Um, and again, it's just an estimate, but it's an estimate that I want the board to sort of fully take in, because we need to find a partner, more than a functional partner, and it would be a lot more money to operate at that maximal level of a fully realized vision of the
Well,
center.
let me ask you one thing. What is your commitment to the future of the center under each of these scenarios?
Okay, my commitment, is that
Yes.
what you asked? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, my commitment to the center is through the end of June 2024, and one of the important part of my job description is to help the center choose a future for itself. That's probably the most important thing. I have a couple books that I've put on hold. I'm not involved with charitable institutions and work of delivering meals and other things that I want to be. The Kaplan Center has eaten that up, and even though I'll be fully present for my granddaughter's bat mitzvah, I'm planning to phase myself out at the end of 2024, minus the one caveat is I'll probably still be finishing the 21st Century Kaplanian Vision project, and I might be open to serving as a kind of senior consultant at
So
a
who is interested in
modest.
who is interested in the option 3, which is the joining up with the super donor, etc.?
Well, the board had some interest when we raised it in the wake of Dan's death. This is when we first imagined the scenarios. And their best guess was that if we could maintain ourselves at our present $100,000 a year, that would be an admirable goal. But we didn't want to close the door on a bigger future. And I've had some conversations with a couple people, foundations, and I can't say any of them really seem promising. But I haven't looked systemically, and I'm sort of waiting for the board to say, okay, put the pedal to the metal on this option of expansion, or let's be real. And this also has to do with the board composition. Jane's been very good about spying new potential board directors. But often they are people who have wisdom, expertise, and not money to add to the support. Do you have any thoughts about these?
Look, one of the big bones of contention with Dan and me is that he was basically, do you need to undo the screen sharing?
Yeah, sorry.
Because it's
yeah, you're getting
there, that's better.
Yeah,
because it was affecting the visual quality. Was the fact that he never really made asks of the people that he needed to.
Right.
And when he did, they were unsuccessful.
Right.
And so that the whole center we were supporting it.
Right.
I mean, and
I didn't think that was right either. And I think I've had some measure of success.
Yeah. I actually think it's really great that we've been able to make it self-supporting without my $1,000 check. which I'm not willing to do. So,
I'm sorry, Karen, go back. I faded out for a minute.
okay.
What aren't you
I
willing to
said,
do?
I'm not willing to write $100,000 check.
Yeah,
Caryn.
right. Got
Right.
it. I understand.
Okay. So I think that the idea of finding somebody who we could join with, who's going to throw 700,000 our way, I think that's zero.
Yeah. Or even 500,000 if we
Even
tried to raise it.
100,000.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah. Right.
I really
Okay.
think that's zero.
Okay.
Because look at the RRC. I mean, that's not the RRC. Look at Reconstructing Judaism. Look at the RRC. They're still drafting off of their endowment, basically, aren't they? I mean, what kind of money does Reconstructing Judaism get?
Not enough, but they work at it.
Right.
They're endowment. Yeah. Anyway,
They got in. They have like a 5 million endowment, right?
I believe so.
But that is old. That goes back a long time, right?
Mm-hmm. Some part of it, yeah, goes back to the Ziegelmans.
Right. Isn't a big chunk of it the college, and that's why they kind of merged the college in with Reconstructing Judaism?
I think that's part of the story I don't completely understand, but yeah.
Okay. So if we merge with them, it will solely be for them to get our donations. I mean, the Kaplan Center will disappear, and I'm certainly am not going to give them 20,000 a year. I don't care for the president, and I don't like their direction. So, you know, to me, the best option would be the middle option, with some years being better than other years. In other words, some years we would just do webinars, but then, you know, someone might have a brilliant idea, and between me and Jeff and other people, we might all pitch in enough to do something great, you know.
Yeah,
like we might
I just
say,
want
okay,
to be.
Go ahead.
No, so I just want to understand, when you say the middle option, do you mean the middle option in terms of money, like the $100,000 option, or are you saying the
I think,
streamlined option of that
oh,
might
I
be
see
as
what you're
little?
saying.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
haven't
I
just.
mean, I think what you need to do is you need to do a more refined analysis for me and for the board, more refined than what you gave me,
Yeah,
as
just to
to
start.
what which of these are recurring. Is the Eisenstadt 10,000, is that a recurring 10,000 a year? Is the Jacobs 20,000 recurring, which I could probably tell you based on what you show me, because the main reason to give is because it's supporting the organization that has other givers to it. Because that gets you, if that's true, that gets you 30,000 a year just from two people. And then what is the recurring nature of these other gifts?
The Newman Foundation, it goes out another 3 years.
Okay.
But the ones that are, you and Jeffrey have made $20,000 and $10,000 commitments for 2 years. So hopefully you would renew in the future. And the Newman Foundation, you know, has made generous donation, 10,000 for another 3 years. But Jack Wolofsky's, I'm sure he'll put us in his will. I want him to live another, 20 good years. But I don't know if I'm still not quite sure whether his donations in Canadian dollars or American dollars. But anyway, his $15,000 to $20,000 donation. So I think what,
I just think a lot more analysis needs to go into the difference between the 35 and the 100.
Okay.
I am guessing that the 35 is doable easily, and that we will have years where we have 100 and years where we have 50 and years when we have 30. If we continue on. And the question is that sustainable? Does the 35 scenario not include any payment for an executive director?
It, again, I can break this down further, but it includes a payment for, I would say it's a combined administrator, executive director, and very part-time. I mean, I would say that's at most $15,000. But you know what? There are numbers of people who are just young and starting out, who believe in the mission, or older and looking for meaningful projects. Deb's always asking me, hey, do you think so-and-so would be a good successor to you as we look at colleagues? And there are a number of them, but
Okay,
it's
so-
not, it's based
So-
on a competent administrator with passion and
I just think we need to I think we should forget scenario 3, the 700,000. It's not going to happen. It's a waste of time.
I tend to agree, but I want the board to say those very words.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think they will.
But you can tell them I strongly believe it's a waste of time, having seen my husband try to get donations for the last,
right. That level of
10
donation.
years. Right.
Yeah.
We should focus on scenario 100,000 and scenario 35,000 and determine whether or what is the minimum that the Kaplan Center can continue to operate in with an executive director that it is at least part-time, but with the idea that income could fluctuate, that some years will have more than other years.
Good.
And what would be the two budgets? The budget in a year where we're on a skeletal budget of 35,000, and then the main thing is someone has to be at the helm, right? There has to be an executive director who is just babysitting the organization and making sure things get done enough to justify its continued existence.
Right.
But with the hope that we're beyond the skeletal every year, but we might not be for some years because of the idiosyncrasies of giving. And have those two scenarios and see whether it makes sense,
Okay.
But we need to have some kind of continuity if we expect people to leave money in their wills.
Right. So that's an important point. I mean, this is really very helpful. It's going to be on our agenda at the February board meeting and the May board meeting. In other words, it's more than a one-time conversation. And increasingly, I will give a more fine-grained analysis of what each of the scenarios are. You have a good eye for this stuff. I might run it by you. That's okay. To take a look at, give some critical.
Yeah, no, and I'm happy to look at budgetary proposals and things like that. Because of my knowledge of the Newberry consort, I kind of, and I know a lot about accounting. So, but the issue is, does anyone even want to do it? I mean, you don't want to drag people. Is this something like Eric would do? No, or is it just too much?
Not. Yeah.
It's too much time for him, right?
It's too much time. He's going through his own process, but then the 2 transition years for the Kaplan Center and 3 really the year after Dan's death corresponded with some open time that I could create in my my life, and was glad to do that. Um, but I think there are other people. I think the tricky thing will be looking for I mean, my salary this year is $30,000, and next year as well for a part that's listed as, half time. Truly, on the open market, I would be making at least $50,000 or $60,000 for half time. But I care about Dan's memory. I care about the Kaplan Center. I care about the work, and I was able to do it. So I'm glad to do that. But there's a lot of different scenarios that need to be.
Well, I think one of the scenarios the board has to do, and we've got this 2-year run out, where we've got, for the
18
next
months now. Yeah,
18 months,
yeah,
to is find that person, find
yeah.
the new
It's come
executive
up,
director.
right?
Because
But
without the new executive director, we're finished.
right.
We can't have an organization without someone running it.
Well, so I mean, Jane has a vision that there's some things that board members can do. We have some talented, Jewishly well-grounded board members and people who are enormously effective people. So she thinks that that the $35,000 scenario possibly could be sustained with let's call it a quarter-time executive director, but board members agreeing to do certain functions, but that's still less than we're doing this year because we've moved from 100,000 to 35. But that's all part of the discussion.
But the
Caryn,
issue is, okay, you need to leave, so we'll resume at 3:30.
How about 4? I just want to give
4.
myself a half hour more. Yeah, we will. Thank you. So I think another hour at the most at 4. We should get through this, and it's been very productive on many different levels. We're spending extended time together and able to dig into this. And thank you for that. And have a good next several hours. All
right. See you in a few hours, and best of luck.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks, Caryn. Bye-bye.